Hello? I don't hear you. Do you
That's
hear me?
why. Yeah, that's why. I've been
Okay.
talking on mute.
All right.
Live audio. Sorry.
No, this is
That's
this
probably
is
most people.
libertarian proof. More of it. Every single show I'm on, just check the energy from thorium show that Spike tried to do with me. It was the
Audio,
beginning. Was,
always audio. So well, I'll redo my run up because I've been talking about this stuff for a couple minutes now. So when people talk about nuclear energy, they get this negative connotation about what we do with with nuclear. You think about nuclear weapons. You think about the disasters at Fukushima and Chernobyl and the almost almost disaster of Three Mile Island. But we can't do what we need to do with energy and through just renewable energy alone. That's a lot of people are putting eggs in the basket of renewable energy, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we need to come up with something that has a large energy output that is going to be safe. And the thing we're talking about tonight is nuclear energy through thorium. So James Ray is our resident expert, head of the Libertarian Party Energy Through Thorium Caucus. And James, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I'm really, really honored that this idea is catching on within the party because,
Yeah.
a lot of my ideas don't, frankly. And one of the keys to having your ideas catch on is to go ahead and have a lot of ideas and expect a lot of them to be crappy. I mean, clearly my give us back real Everclear idea here in Florida
I'm
is,
down with that, though.
huh?
I'm down with that.
Oh, I want my Everclear, damn it. It helped me, make RSO for my dad back when RSO wasn't even legal in this
Oh,
state.
wow. Yeah.
But let's stick with thorium. We could talk about cannabis all night.
All day. Yeah.
But thorium is just so exciting to me. I first stumbled onto it when I was in high school and in the library, and in between being disgusted being disgusting to the girls there, I would read voraciously, and one of the things I read about was this wild reactor idea that they were going to put a reactor on an airplane, and it was going to be molten, and this was presented as a really, really bad, really, really crazy idea, and I accepted that flying around an airplane with a reactor on it was a really crazy idea. And I never really thought beyond that. It took Kirk Sorensen in 2008 to get me thinking beyond that. But in 2008, President Obama won the election, of course. And I was listening to a press conference with him, and this gentleman asked him a question about energy from thorium. And so, of course, and Obama gives this kind of bland Obama answer or whatever. But by that time, I'm already Googling this stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, this is the stuff. And so for a while, I didn't even bother the LP very much with it. I mean, I did the stupidest possible thing, which was post like hour and a half long Google Tech Talks to my Facebook page, which nobody would watch because nobody watches more than 3 minutes of these things. And so, I was very stupid, and my advocacy was pretty much nil. And the Obama administration did not want to listen to an asshole libertarian who was making fun of them on every single other topic. So that didn't go very far. And so finally, there was a caucus for everything, it seemed, in the LP, and a lot of the caucuses were having conflicts, and there was a Waffle House caucus that kind of inspired me to make this thing. And I was like, well, I'm going to rant about thorium. And almost immediately we had to kick the fusion people out. Okay. And this is our pointless controversy, because every caucus has to have a pointless controversy. And this is ours. When I was 16 years old, I so wanted fusion to be the thing. I wanted to skip over fission. Why bother with fission? Fission's not that sexy.
Mm.
There's all these radioactive byproducts. There's all
Yeah.
this horrible mess with fusion. We've got the sun, and it's better than solar power. And the problem is those tokamak reactors and all the other fusion stuff is it just doesn't ever get done. This is something that's proven. This is something that has worked, at least kind of worked. The molten salt reactor experiment and various other experiments tell us it will work. And shortly, our Chinese friends will be proving to us that it will work because Kirk Sorensen, and you should all watch the Tom Woods show, by the way, with Kirk Sorensen on it. But Kirk Sorensen released all the information, basically open sourced the whole thing. And the Chinese figured out that, hey, this is a good idea. And they didn't scream or yell, hey, we're doing this. But, when you ask them, every time they're asked, that it's 200 scientists. No, it's actually 300 scientists now, and on and on. And they're putting money and resources into this. And God help them, I mean, I was saying to you before the show, this is one of my controversial views, by the way. The energy from thorium caucus is a very simple thing, and we want to be very, very, libertarian and accept all libertarians, even the ones that would think I'm batshit crazy for wanting the Chinese or even a worse country to get breakthroughs on this. But humanity needs these breakthroughs so much. And it's not like it's a weapon,
Yeah.
Cheap energy is almost the opposite of a weapon. Cheap energy makes people not want weapons anymore because and this is not just cheap energy, it's also cheap, fresh water, and I don't know whether this idea can make, the people in the Middle East want to stop shooting at each other, because nothing in my lifetime has really made that happen. But, there's more hope of that with this than there is with bombing people.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about nuclear energy history. So
Yes.
thorium, that one of the misconceptions is we've always done uranium, where right now the uranium is the dominant ore in nuclear energy. That's what we use to do all of our power plants in the United States.
It's U-235.
Yeah,
I mean,
uranium
it's a
235.
really rare kind of. It's the platinum of uraniums. It's
Yeah.
not normal uranium.
Yeah, so the uranium ore only generates about 2 or 3% uranium 235 once it's been once they've converted it and did all the breeding and all that stuff to get all the impurities out. So, but thorium was there in the conversation in the beginning. Why did thorium fall out? And just give us a little general history about nuclear power in the United States.
Okay, well, that's a really good question, but it's also
Long.
really complex and long and
Yeah.
weird answer, and there's various, like the libertarian conspiracy theory answer would be, well, you can't make bombs out of it, and in the beginning that was kind of true. I mean, excuse me, in the beginning of after they bombed Hiroshima and then Nagasaki, there were a few months when the United States didn't really know if they had any working nuclear weapons. And it wasn't like every single nuclear weapon that they tried always worked. They would try some and have these things they called fizzles, that would be, a fissile fizzle. Anyway, it was there were the times were not great in the beginning for the program to make bombs, and this was a very important program to our government, obviously. And back then, they didn't know yet that the Russians had spied upon them and knew all of the secrets, apparently, or at least a lot of them. And so, it was a weird time in their history, in our nuclear history. And the weirdest thing to me, and the thing that I learned most recently after 2008, was that the inventor of the light water reactor. You know, the main genius behind this light water reactor, which was optimized for Hyman Rickover's nuclear Navy subs, you know, the Polaris going under the North Pole and all that. But the inventor of that is was the main guy who was into molten salt reactors. And one of the lessons, there's a lot of lessons. I forget which video this is from. You might have watched it in your prep. You watched more than just the 5-minute show.
Oh yeah, I watched a ton of it.
All you have to do to prep the show with Jim Ray is watch 5 minutes of video. But David watched all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's the nuclear Navy. The reactors were very optimized for the nuclear Navy, and the nuclear Navy is a very cool thing, and it was a very cool history on its own. But you know, Hyman Rickover was a very driven man, but Alvin Weinberg wanted something different for civilian reactors. He knew that there could be problems if you had these pressurized water reactors, especially if you're trying to do it for a big city. It's one thing to power a sub, it's another thing to power a city. And so he wanted this early on. And there were all kinds of debates. And, you know, I don't want to bog things down too much. I mean, what we should be talking about, what really sells, I think, is the prosperity that we could get. And let me show you the thing that I forgot to show on Spike's show, by the way. I was all screwed up. This is a poster that I've had a whole bunch of people, including Spike and Joe, sign the back of. But it's a cartoon, and I've been told it's a stupid cartoon and that it's not funny and that I'm stupid. So, you know, take that if you want. But let me read the cartoon to you. It says, "Science tip: log scales are for quitters who can't find enough paper to make their point properly." And it shows a dude with this giant pile of paper and the number 76 million on it. And then and that's for uranium. And then for sugar, it's 19. For coal, it's 24. For fat, it's 39. And for gasoline, it's 46. And that's megajoules per kilogram. Yeah. And so uranium, the energy density of uranium is just so ridiculously much more of a good deal that, yeah, we have to, you know, get used to the idea of a little bit of risk. But is there that much risk? Okay, now I want to make it clear that I'm speaking for James M. Ray rather than the Energy from Thorium Caucus. There is a concept called nuclear radiation hormesis, and it's the concept that, yes, a lot of radiation can kill you. Obviously, we have atomic bombs to kill people, but a little bit of radiation might not only be not bad for you, it might even be good for you. And there are weird instances throughout history, including, you know, the unfortunate human tests we had after World War II, where the Hiroshima and Nagasaki victims did die, but some of the people who got really exposed didn't die at the rates we thought they might die. And, you know, and humans aren't rats. Humans aren't lab rats, you know. And the most interesting hormesis experiment to me is this building in Taiwan. And this dude in Taiwan decided he was going to save some money on making cobalt steel by using this cobalt 60 from a reactor. So he makes this cobalt steel with a bunch of cobalt 60 for his skyscraper, and he installs it in the skyscraper, and people live there in the skyscraper having a human experiment with radiation, a very hot skyscraper, for like 20 years or something. And it turns out they have less of certain diseases. You know, there's actual health benefits from living in this, you know, scary sounding radiated building. Now, I'm not saying that radiation is totally a good thing. Obviously, this only works with tiny microdoses. What I'm saying is that the science is more interesting than how the government paints it. The government paints it in a theory called the linear no threshold theory that says any radiation bad. So even a zillionth of a millirem is bad. And that isn't necessarily true. We live on a radioactive world. We walk over a whole bunch of thorium, each of us, every day.
Yeah.
And it turns out there's more energy in the thorium and uranium impurities in coal than there is in the coal that's firing coal-powered reactor, coal-powered, plants, which is odd.
That's one of the things that I found interesting was that a lot of the thorium that gets mined out is mined through other operations, and it's basically waste. So they don't even use the thorium that's
It's not just waste; it's scary waste that they're irrationally scared of, because
yeah,
the half-life of thorium is so long that it's actually not a very dangerous thing. I wish I did have a golf ball sized piece of thorium to hold in my hand. It would be a little bit heavier than lead. It would be really cool. And I think it would be totally illegal for me to have or something at the moment. But
all the fun things are.
it would, yeah, I know. All of my best ideas are felonies. That's one of my famous sayings. But it wouldn't be a very dangerous piece of radioactive material, because I wouldn't store it next to my balls at night or anything. But it's not a very radioactive thing. What's very radioactive, but in a good way, kind of, is plutonium 238, which powers the Voyager spacecraft and powers our rover and on Mars, and powers the really cool stuff. And that's one of the other really cool things about energy from thorium. These reactors would allow us to make lots of that stuff, and making lots of that stuff means lots of robotic outer space exploration. And everyone's excited about putting a man on Mars, and I guess I kind of am too. But the truth is, humans are not very space durable, and robots work a lot better than humans in space.
Sure. So the one of the things I saw in a lot of the videos that I watched were the issue with creating a thorium reactor, especially like these molten salt reactors, is that they want government to fund it. It's that first mover cost of you've got to, let's say you're Duke Power or somebody like that who has a nuclear power plant in North Carolina, and they've been firing uranium. Why would they switch over to thorium? Why would they incur the cost to do that?
Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, they don't want to incur those costs, and once they won't really get a first mover advantage by paying the first mover costs.
No.
And there's also a great deal of what libertarians should be talking about more, this concept called regulatory capture. Okay, if I'm an NRC bureaucrat and I regulate light water reactors all my life, I might have even watched some of these Kirk Sorensen videos, and I might even know in my heart that, look, we're down the wrong path and all that. But if I'm 3 years from retirement, I am not going to rock the boat at the NRC. And that's the problem with a bureaucracy like the NRC. What they will react to, and what must happen, is our friends the Chinese have to do this first. And I hate saying that. I mean, I want us to do this. I'm with Kirk Sorensen on that, and I'm sure you've seen him say this too. And I want us to do this. And another thing, I really, really, really want Tom Woods to have a whole Kirk Sorensen week. I mean, I don't expect him to go talk to me, but I would love it if somebody had Kirk on for a week, just talking about the interesting opportunities. And at some point, Kirk's company, Flybe Energy, might even become a possible good investment. I'm not an investment advisor. I don't have any money anyway, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. If I was smart, I'd have a bunch of Bitcoin.
Well, or Doge.
Yeah, the Doge. Well, the Doge proves them.
Yeah, Doge is a setup. Doge is a setup. That's a topic for a different time. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier fusion. So, what is that? Why are you guys Jets and Sharks versus the fusion folks?
because because it knocks things off topic and makes me go crazy. And the truth is, I'm into fusion. I have to admit it. I always was since I was a teenager, you
Mhm.
know. But I mean, fusion is kind of like, you know, fusion. You know, when I was a teenager, I was also into Farrah Fawcett Majors. Okay, who is a gorgeous girl. You know, you're
Yeah.
laughing. Younger
No,
people
I know, I know. I
Younger
think even
people don't
guys
even
my
know
age.
who the hell I'm talking about, okay? And it doesn't matter who I just think gorgeous girl, okay? But you know, this girl in particular would disdain me. Of all guys, you know, she would, you know, I would be the last choice, you know. And it's the same with fusion. We're just not going to get there. I mean, we might in somebody else's lifetime, but we've spent so damn much money on it, and this works. Fusion, I mean, it doesn't work yet. And God help them. I hope it works someday. You know, the Lockheed Skunk Works is working on it. And, you know, bless them. I mean, I want them to succeed. I bet this dude a gram of gold that we were going to have energy from thorium before we're going to have energy from fusion. But the truth is, we don't have either. And I count energy from thorium or energy from fusion once somebody starts selling it. You know that once it's commercially available, that's going to be when one or the other of
Power
us
in
wins
some
the bet.
Chinese city. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's going to be. But I hope that, okay, once again, speaking for James M. Ray, not the Thorium Caucus, I hope the Chinese succeed beyond my wildest dreams and they do reactor in a shipping container or two or three or however many it takes, you know, and they standardize reactors and build them just like Boeing builds jet planes, because that's what has to happen. And with a little bit more research, we can do that and do it really well. I mean, there was a lot of alloy research that they did at Oak Ridge. I don't know if you saw some of that in the videos, but it was gorgeous stuff. And we've lost a lot of the a lot of the stuff was sold as scrap once the molten salt project was scrapped. But we can still get a lot of that information back, you know. And Kirk Sorensen saved a lot of it. And I don't know where he is right now, but you know, even just doing this with 316 stainless steel is going to be a breakthrough. Once we get better alloys and more sturdy materials, it'll be even better. And you know, one of the great things about this is not just electricity. Everybody talks about electricity, but also the heat that would give us desalinating water and just process heat. Industrial heat that's suddenly super duper cheap becomes a life changer for a lot of industries, and it would allow a lot of energy intensive right now energy in industries like, you know, melting plastic bottles into park benches and stuff like that to become a really, really cost effective thing.
And the one of the concerns that we have with global warming and all that stuff is that with the polar ice caps melting and returning into the ocean, we're actually uh, unsalinating the water. So if you get high level desalination, you can return some of that salt to the water to keep the balance up. Um,
Good point.
yeah,
And in addition to that, on minute 3, you don't have to watch all the long, boring videos that David and I have watched. You don't subject yourself to that. But the 5-minute video on the Thorium Caucus page that I pinned to the top because, you know, I don't want to subject you to that much torture. At minute 3, what it says is true. We can pull, once energy is this cheap, we can pull CO2 out of the air and then split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And we've got hydrocarbon fuels at that point. No drilling, no pumping oil, none of the risk, none of the foreign wars, none of that. And it's pulling CO2 out of the air. So it's literally, you know, it's solving the CO2 problem.
wow.
Greta Thunberg would have to find something else to screech about. She will find something else to screech about. Don't worry.
That that will happen. So we've talked about China, and I agree with you. I don't have an issue with China. This could be a solution to the idea of a nuclear Iran. If Iran had thorium nuclear plants, you can theoretically build bombs. I mean, you could do a dirty bomb off of what's derived from a thorium plant, but the expense of generating a nuclear weapon out of the thorium versus the uranium plants is just prohibitively expensive. So,
And there's a hard gamma ray problem that
yep,
U-233 has. I mean, but why would you even want? I mean, in a world of turbocharged prosperity, why would you want to start or fight a
yeah,
war? I mean, you have these, you'd suddenly have these beautiful things that you could do with this gorgeously abundant power. I mean, imagine what you'd do with energy bills that are 20% of what they are right now, just tomorrow. Tomorrow, your electric bill goes down that much. I mean, I might even quit hating FPL as much as I do. I don't know. That's a long shot, but
yeah,
I dislike the electric monopoly, and I always have.
yes,
But I still buy their electricity. But I mean, there are so many possibilities with cheap power that I can't think of because okay, the analogy that I always like to talk about because I'm old, and so I'm old enough to have experienced long distance minutes being a really expensive commodity. And we loved our grandmother. All three boys, I had, two other brothers. All of us loved my grandmother. We wanted to talk to grandmother for as long as we possibly could. Mom and dad could not afford unlimited phone time. And so we had to, shut up and hang up very soon. Okay. Now, in one lifetime, I have gone to such abundance that I fall asleep famously during Zoom calls. And 1 minute of one of those damn Zoom calls is more bandwidth than we ever spent calling
yeah,
Vitaloop. So it's ridiculous, and I don't want to say that what I'm going to do with this prosperity is squander it, even though I know that the past kind of says that, but it's also going to really, really help some really, really poor people in really,
yes,
really impoverished places, and those people might benefit me in ways that I cannot possibly imagine. I think one of them will. There's millions of them out there. All that has to happen is one of them has to benefit me, and there's breakthroughs. Who's the next Tesla? Who's the next Einstein? Who's the next Edison? There's got to be one, a lot of them out there. And if they can, get beyond not being able to afford a toothbrush,
yeah.
at Vermin Supreme, I mean, it would be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that a lot of people can't get past with nuclear energy is the idea of its danger, its inherent danger. So
Mhm.
talk about these molten liquid reactors, the salt reactors,
Mhm.
and how they're safe and what, kind of the process and what makes them safer than a traditional nuclear light water reactor.
Well, they don't have to operate at high pressure, and they don't even need to be near water. If you look at all the nuclear fleet around us, it's
Yeah.
all along rivers and
Yep.
lakes, and there's a reason for that. But these reactors, if they're using the salt, the meltdown is situation normal. Meltdown is a safe state for the reactor. And the reactor, instead of trying to use pumps like Fukushima tried to use, and by the way, the pumps at Fukushima performed heroically. I think some of them performed for 6 hours underwater, which was an amazing feat and a very good thing. But anyway, the molten salt reactor doesn't need a pump. It uses gravity as its pump. And I have worked with cars and with boats pumps. And I can tell you, pump problems, a fuel pump, a water pump, especially a water pump and an outboard motor, those things are headaches. And you don't want to deal with this pump. And the idea of dealing instead with gravity is a very, very stable force in my life. It's been very, very constant. And so,
Yeah.
that's how this reactor works. And at the bottom of this reactor is a plug of salt that's frozen by a fan that's blowing across, say, a kink in the hose, basically.
Yeah.
And the fan is keeping that cold. I mean, cold enough that the salt can't leak out. But if all power goes off to the reactor, all the people die, everyone's dead, everything's, gone, the fan stops blowing, the plug melts, and gravity makes the salt go to a safe place. But even if the salt is getting too hot, you can basically just add more non-fissile material to it. And if worse comes to worse, like let's say you're worried about a hostile power gaining control of your reactor with army forces or something like that, you could have a whole bunch of U-238 and just drop it into the reactor right away. If the army is entering the gates, and it would denature the reactor. It would ruin the reactor. It would be a terrible thing. I mean, I don't want military conflict. I don't want any military conflict anymore. I want this to lead to so much prosperity and peace that that war is considered mass murder, like libertarians consider it.
Yeah.
And it's considered a thing of the past, like unfortunately it is not. And to me, this is our chance to have that, or have something on the road to that happen in my lifetime. I'm gonna turn 60 this year, and I'm trying to leave the world and my party a little bit better of a place. And what I'm good at is infuriating people, and I shouldn't do as much of that.
You entertain me, man. I love talking with you. So
Well, thank you. You're very kind.
so well, I mean, one of the benefits of energy from thorium is that even beyond uranium, it produces like 250,000 times more energy than uranium, which is also 40 million times more energy than from coal, which is a large portion of our current domestic energy production right now. So we could easily eclipse our energy needs through, converting. I would even think like about half of our current nuclear plants from uranium to thorium.
Yeah, or just putting a new one on top of the old one. You don't really want to convert so much as you want to put the new one that's optimized for eating up waste, say, and secondarily creating power. And you'd make those plants there. You could have other plants that are optimized solely for power. You could have other plants that are, say, optimized solely for creating plutonium-238 for deep space exploration, which this is after my own heart. I'm a NASA geek. That's what keeps me from being a full anarchist. I saw both of the Voyagers launch. Both of my parents work for NASA. I just can't quite get the space program out of my heart. But the rest of the government could go to hell.
All right. So you were talking about the Nuclear Regulatory Agency or Commission, and that's one of the things that I think will be the hindrance. And of course, it adds to the cost of creating one of these new thorium reactors, because you have to get licensing, you have to do all this stuff. And let's say the Chinese do knock it out of the park with thorium reactors. What's to say, companies like Duke Power, these electric monopolies that have nuclear power right now, would really step in and try and keep thorium off of the United States, because it's going to be a cost to them, because they're going to have to retrofit their plants or build new plants.
They'd have to build new plants, but I think building new plants, if they're this lucrative, is a good idea. I mean, here's my fantasy future. Okay. I want Ricky Dale Harrington to come to Florida and catch the giant monster tarpon he is destined to catch, and then go back and win the governorship. And at that point, make all kinds of pro-nuclear and pro-molten salt reactor decrees that none of these power companies can resist. Kirk Sorensen picks up and moves there. Everybody's moving there just to get the deregulated thing, and everybody's trying to be safe. He's still keeping things safe. This is safe. I
Yeah.
mean, relying on gravity to me is the safest possible thing because believe me, gravity has been very reliable for me. And so that's my ideal goal. Now, whether or not that happens, I don't know. I mean, nothing ever happens the way I want it to, well, almost nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ricky is definitely pro energy from thorium, though. Believe me, he is the most. He's as pro energy from thorium as Spike. Who is definitely pro energy from thorium. So we have some good LP energy from thorium candidates.
Yeah. So if you don't know who Ricky Dale Harrington is, he ran for Senate in Arkansas
Mhm.
this last election. He was by far our best result in a federal election, and he is running for governor of Arkansas. So we look forward to his race. He's a great speaker, great communicator. I'm excited to see how he does.
Oh, me too. And he called me up. I'm not exactly a star, so I felt honored. But
Yeah.
he called me up and we talked, and I had a great time talking to him.
Yeah.
He's
Uh,
so calm. Unlike me. I mean, I'm like all over the place. But believe me, Ricky, you will not be calm when that tarpon does that thing to your bait.
so now, what are some of the downsides of thorium? Uh,
You know, it's hard to think of any. The major downside has been that the development back when there wasn't an internet and people didn't really communicate that much all happened in one place, which was Oak Ridge. And so there wasn't really an investment in other places like the labs in Illinois, California, etc., to in the molten salt idea.
yeah,
And instead, these people were doing a very scary to me idea of liquid sodium. Sodium is a very dangerous metal. It's really cool. I mean, if you have kids, you should show them the metals videos of sodium chunks being thrown into a pond because the sodium blows up and catches on fire and does exciting things. And this is sodium in its solid, non-molten form being thrown into just ordinary pond water. But if a drop of water gets to the liquid sodium, who the hell knows what happens? But I anticipate it's not good.
not a good thing. Yeah,
It's just a reactor based on that rather than based on these very safe salts just seems to me a bad idea. These salts, the fluoride, beryllium, lithium salts. I mean, if you took a rocket propelled grenade and blasted the side of a lifter vessel, the salt would go glub 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 out and spill into a containment tank or eventually into the drain tank, but it wouldn't really be a nuclear disaster even if you penetrated the reactor. And the reactor, like I said, is not a high pressure vessel. One of the problems with nuclear energy right now, and it's still superior, but one of the problems with nuclear energy right now is that it relies on really, really high pressures.
yeah.
And when
That's what went
that
off.
dangerous.
Yeah, that's what went off in Chernobyl was that was a steam explosion, and
Mhm.
you know uh, that
A very poor design too. I mean,
yeah, that
it
for
was
sure too.
it was like our early Chernobyl was like our early I guess it's Hanford reactor, which was kind of genius, but kind of it
Scary.
was step one, and a giant wall of graphite is not really what you want your reactor to be. You want your reactor to be responsive. That was the cool thing about the aircraft reactor project is that they had to at least pretend to be going with the specs that the Air Force wanted, and that made them give a reactor that was going to react to conditions where if you cooled it down, it wants to get more energy, and you want that kind of a thing. You want a response where it's not really just humans. it's the physics and the chemistry doing the responding, because
Yeah,
physics and chemistry being on your side is a good thing.
absolutely. Um, so let's talk about the energy from thorium caucus. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's embarrassing. I mean, um, we don't have. I'm supposed to be the leader, but I'm like,
Or the leader.
I'm an anarchist. Um, and we don't really have any rules. I mean, it's a Facebook group where I try to keep everybody on topic, but then I go ranting off about, wind power killing bats. Oh, by the way, I'm totally into bats. Once again, speaking for James M. Ray, not the Energy from Thorium Caucus, I wanted Jo Jorgensen last time to totally go pro bat after she got bit. I wanted to go with, okay, there's a group that my dad, rest his soul, he's dead now, was into called Bat Conservation International. And they keep this cave in Texas called the Bracken Bat Cave, which
Yeah.
my dad took me to before he died. And the Bracken Bat Cave, in addition to being one of the worst smells you'll ever smell in your life, is a really amazing sight. All these bats, a number of Mexican free-tailed bats that's so great that they show up on radar. I mean, there's a zillion of them, and they perform vital agricultural tasks that are not known, and they are not rodents. I mean, that bat is actually closer DNA wise to a human than to a rat, believe it or not. So
I call them sky puppies.
pardon me.
I call them sky puppies. They look like dogs.
Yeah. Well, the cute ones are the fruit eating ones from overseas. These are much uglier bats, but ugly dudes need love too. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, these bats are so beautiful because of what they do for the environment, and I am just in love with them. And my dad was an early supporter of Bat Conservation International, and they've got the Bracken Bat Cave land now, and they need to get more land around it, but we need to do more for bats. I am so into bats. I'll do a whole show on bats, but I need to shut up about bats.
Well, I mean, that actually is a point, though, when it comes to renewable energy. Solar is fine. Solar,
Even
if we all
solar takes
adopted
up
this,
enough acreage. It's
yeah,
too energy non-dense. It takes up so much acreage that you end up taking a bunch of desert from the tortoises and stuff like that.
yeah. I mean,
And
I think that the Elon Musk solar roof model is probably more likely to be more successful
yeah,
at large scale energy generation than taking over like a several hundred acre slice of the desert to put these panels out. But
and not
the
just
wind turbines kill a lot of animals every year, including bats, including eagles, including
yeah,
like they,
they kill special birds like your kitty cat. Okay, yes, kitty cats kill birds, but kitty cats kill sparrows and stuff. These things kill raptors. You
yeah.
know, these things are raptor death machines. They're really really nasty, and they're operated. I mean, the people want to feel good about themselves, and I understand. I want to feel good about myself too. I did my own water for 4 years and now I'm not. And it breaks my heart that I'm no longer water self sufficient and I can no longer be smug. But, you know, there's, there's an environmentalist cost benefit ratio thing that you've got to consider. I mean, I don't bother with the recycling as far as cardboard and all that shit goes. They have it out there for people who want to feel good for themselves. I recycle the aluminum because that's what pays. That's what makes sense economically. And we've got to think that way. We can't just use feelings for everything.
True, and that's kind of the big scam is it makes you feel good about yourself, but we don't have the capacity to recycle all the cardboard that we're throwing into these recycling bins. So a lot of it gets hauled off to dumps, on the sly. It we set it out in the blue bin, but it ends up in the same place just because we just don't have the capacity to recycle that large scale on the cardboard. So
Yeah,
But
people hate when I say recycle only aluminum. Believe me, I am considered so dirty and horrible by these people. I've learned not to even rant about it, because it upsets them, and they don't even, they won't even get convinced.
yeah, I mean, this is a lot of data. I mean, I did a big debate on recycling many years ago, and it really is capacity. Like, you can separate all your trash and all that good stuff, and that's great. If you want to do that, I don't have a problem with you doing that. But just understand that unless you have a lot of excess capacity locally to do recycling, it's going to end up in the dump. It's just
Mm.
that's the way it's going to happen. So,
And,
um,
and also, people who want us to separate our trash seem to think that humans are incapable of being trained and incapable of learning and adapting. Look, I will know if it suddenly starts making sense to recycle plastic too. I'll start recycling plastic. It just doesn't make sense at the moment, but if it does, I will.
yeah, and if you're concerned about your plastics ending up in the ocean, unless you actually live on the coast, your plastics aren't ending up in the your straw from your drink at Burger King is not the one that ended up in the turtle's nose. I mean, like, just understand that
And I love
the
turtles.
plastic is not coming from like where I'm at in West Virginia. It's not making it to the ocean. It's in the ground. But so well, I guess the greater point I wanted to make about renewables is that's part of the equation. But Dan Fishman shared an article today about turbineless,
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
without the blades,
Mhm.
kind of on that Dyson wind tunnel type thing. Hopefully that's a solution that makes wind power a little more
I'm
less deadly. But
personally dubious. I mean, it can't. Even if, let's assume that wind blows all the time, so we don't have the intermittency problem, we don't have the battery storage problem, or any of those problems. Assume there's always demand and wind's blowing all the time. Even then, I don't think it's energy dense enough to really break even. I mean, I think those kind of things, in order for them to make sense, we need the crutch of energy from thorium nuclear power to let these people spend money on something that lets them feel good about themselves. Because clearly they're never going to feel good about nuclear, even though, to me, nuclear is safe. To me, nuclear, if you look at the accidents, yeah, the accidents are always bad. But one of the reasons that names like 3 Mile Island and Fukushima and all that, and you don't know the names of some of the oil accidents, is because nuclear accidents are so rare. Now, yeah, it's also so emotional and all that, and the
definitely dangerous.
thing the thing that kills you being invisible is obviously a problem PR wise for my
Yeah.
side. But hey, you know, it's not that bad.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, when we have these large scale incidents with nuclear, um, it does slow down the momentum from nuclear, but it also lengthens the idea because those renewable energies are never going to completely replace what we use as far as energy goes. So yes, we need that crush from nuclear, and all the regulations that they've plowed on the nuclear industry, all the licensure and these agencies, all it does is kill innovation. Yeah, there are old reactors. They do need to be replaced. But if you're making it so expensive and so much of a hassle to just go through the process, billions of dollars sunk into it before you even put anything in the ground, um, then you're killing innovation. You're killing the ability for us to innovate our reactors so they become safer.
Oh,
And you're getting delays in the number of reactors that get fixed.
and it's even worse than that. Okay, I mean, the regulations for nuclear are specifically only for nuclear. So if we held things like fracking or coal to the same
Oh my
standard
goodness.
as we hold nuclear, that would all get shut down instantly. And so,
$25 a gallon.
yeah, it is this. We, we're insane. Our
Yes.
regulators are insane. This is not a market thing. You cannot blame capitalism for this. There's nothing capitalist about being this irrational about a deal that's as good as my stupid cartoon back there on the poster says it is. It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So, James, we're just about down to the end of our show, but anything else you want to talk about, or anything
Oh,
else you need to say?
I don't even know. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey,
Um,
my pleasure. And this is a great topic.
yeah. Let me say I'll do anybody's show, no matter how small. I mean, pretty much anybody. I'm not.
And honestly, you should be on Tom Woods.
There should be.
Do a week. You should be on Tom Woods. Do a week with him.
Well, look, I want it to be Kirk. I mean, Kirk Sorensen knows so much more about this topic than me. Oh, and by the way, other people in the caucus are also much more expert than I am, and they're just not loudmouths. And so,
Well, a lot of times it's the non-scientist people that can convey these ideas a lot better than the ones that know the ins and outs. All the 100%, and can knows the chemistry and physics behind it. It's the people that can conceptualize it and put it into layman's terms that are able to move the ball forward on this stuff.
well, thank you, and I hope I'm that guy. But
Yeah, you are.
I want to help this caucus. My ultimate success would be if one of the two major parties, or both of them, adopt this idea and push things forward. I'm certain that will happen when, not if, our friends the Chinese harness this.
Exactly.
And so. And by the way, I have Chinese family members at this point, and I just really hope it happens. For the sake of humanity, for the sake of peace, for the sake of liberty, for the sake of prosperity, I don't know how much I can say that this would do us good, even if our enemies do it, because it will release the Einsteins and Teslas out there. We're going to have this prosperity if we can just avoid war for a little bit longer. And it's a tragedy that nuclear energy was born in the horror of war, but if we can do it, we're gonna liberty will win, prosperity will win, markets will win, peace will win.
That's a great message. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone joins us for the Political Deep Dive After Dark, which airs in a couple minutes, and we will talk to everyone next week. It is going to be a best of show. We're going to air the episode with Ashley Shade on, because I will be at the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania's convention next week, so I'll be pretty much fried out at that point. So, but thank you so much, James, and we'll talk to everyone next week. Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Political Deep Dive. We air every Sunday night at 8 p.m. You can follow us on Facebook.com/The Political Deep Dive, all one word, on Twitter.com/Political Deep, on YouTube.com/Papa Duke, PAPADUKE, and on Twitch.tv/The Political Deep Dive, all one word. On Monday, the audio of the previous night's episode is found on SoundCloud.com/The Political Deep Dive, all one word. And you can join in on the fun on Instagram.com/The Political Deep Dive, all one word. Thanks to People for Liberty for their continued support at people4liberty.org, and on Facebook.com/People4Liberty Inc. Give us a like and a share on whatever platform you are viewing us from. It helps us out, and we certainly appreciate the support. We look forward to seeing you Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern.